Jeremiah 17, the first two verses. The sin of Judah is written down with an iron stylus. With a diamond point it is engraved upon the tablet of their heart and on the horns of their altars. As they remember their children, so they remember their altars and their asherim by green trees on the high hills. Now the sin of idolatry committed by Judah was committed by a self-righteous people. That's evident here in this chapter. Elohim says they remember their children in the same way they remember their altars. And he goes on, he talks again about their green trees on the high hills. Remember what asherim are? That's a grove of trees. Isn't it? It's just the way Christianity has embraced the green tree thing. How many times have we been warned against that? What, Tom? What you got?
Does that tell you what kind of tree it is? Asherim or what?
No, not necessarily. And when it talks about green trees, it sure does seem like it must be evergreen. Yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind. They consider their altars as precious as their children. It means a lot to them. What they do here is very emotional to them. Okay, it's very meaningful to them. Hosea gives us more detail of this. Hosea 4, verses 13 and 14. They offer sacrifices on the tops of the mountains and burn incense on the hills, under oak, poplar, and terebinth, because their shade is pleasant. Therefore your daughters play the harlot, and your brides commit adultery. I will not punish your daughters when they play the harlot, or your brides when they commit adultery. For the men themselves go apart with harlots and offer sacrifices with temple prostitutes. So the people without understanding are ruined. It's just gross immorality that's involved with all this. And granted, Christmas is not really about gross immorality anymore, per se. So it's okay, right? It's just the idolatry that's involved, and the reminiscence of idolatry that's involved. Remember. That's like remembering the old girlfriend, boyfriend. Okay? It's just not appreciated by the spouse whatsoever. Verses 3 and 4. A mountain of mine in the countryside, I will give over your wealth and all your treasures for booty, your high places for sin throughout your borders. And you will, even of yourself, let go of your inheritance that I gave you. And I'll make you serve your enemies in the land which you do not know, for you have kindled a fire in my anger, which will burn forever. Well, Elohim says they're going to let go of that inheritance. What's that inheritance again? That's the land. Yeah, that's that land flowing with milk and honey that provides lush food with very little work on the people's part. They're going to serve their enemies in strange lands, it says here. That generation of Judah has kindled the anger of Yahweh, and it will burn against them forever. Verses 5 and 6. Thus says Yahweh, cursed is the man who trusts in mankind and makes flesh his strength, and whose heart turns away from Yahweh. For he'll be like a bush in the desert and will not see when prosperity comes, but will live in stony wastes in the wilderness, a land of salt without habitation. So the man who trusts in mankind is cursed. He will not realize prosperity when it comes. That's what we have here too today. We have all kinds of prosperity. We have everybody here is very prosperous. But yeah. That's correct. Yeah, trusting in the guy behind the pulpit. That's trusting in your denomination, trusting in your church. You got to trust in the Father alone. Well, we have a lot of prosperity today. But the problems we have now? Depression, anxiety, turmoil. My gosh.
We don't have starvation.
No, we don't have starvation. I'm starving. I'm a little 200-pound starving little boy here. It's amazing. Now, the problems we have, boy, we make them up as we go, don't we? ADD, ADHD, or whatever. I don't know. Little boy just won't behave. Well, my little boys wouldn't behave either at one time. I gave them a little bit of vitamin B. It's right around my waist. Cured the ADD. Got their attention. There's no attention deficit anymore. Well, Yahweh is going to contrast this man here, that he describes here, with one who trusts in him. Jeremiah 17, verses 7 and 8. Blessed is the man who trusts in Yahweh and whose trust is Yahweh. For he'll be like a tree planted by the water that extends its roots by a stream and will not fear when the heat comes. But its leaves will be green and will not be anxious in a year of drought, nor cease to yield fruit. Now, the man who trusts in Yahweh is like a tree planted by the water. Now, a tree planted by the stream, it extends its roots into the water that's always present. Drought doesn't affect it, and it always yields fruit. Now, this is very similar to another passage in Scripture. David, do you remember which one? What does that remind you of?
Psalms.
Which psalm? You used to have it memorized.
Yeah, I believe it's not.
Chapter 1?
I'm sorry?
Chapter 1?
No, it's the first chapter.
Yeah, the first chapter.
I'm just kidding. Very good. Pauline, yes.
I memorized that too. I know about her.
Oh, well, and the first two psalms they're just blow you away.
Yes, it does.
The first three verses in all of the psalms. How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the Torah of Yahweh, and in his Torah he meditates day and night. And he'll be like a tree firmly planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in its season. And its leaf does not wither, and in whatever he does, he prospers. Just beautiful. Verse 9 of Jeremiah 17, the heart is more deceitful than all else and is desperately sick. Who can understand it? You know, this verse is very revealing to man. We can't trust our heart to lead us, okay? We can't trust our heart to lead us. That's the mistake of many who think they can go against the word of Elohim and follow their hearts. You know, I've heard so many times from people, well, you know, if the Holy Spirit convicts me in that direction, to honor the Sabbath day, to not eat unclean things, well, then I'll do it. Really? Well, his word directs you there. That shows you, what do they follow? Not his word. They're following their heart. What? You know, people think you're guilty if you feel guilty. No. No. You know, most of the men in penitentiaries right now, they don't feel guilty. Interview from decades ago, interviewing a lot of men in penitentiaries, and the vast majority of them said, hey, I did what I had to do at the time, given the circumstances. You would have done the same thing. You know, I had to kill him. He wouldn't give me my stuff. Or whatever, you know. Thought he did the right thing, followed his heart. And nothing but disaster. In Jeremiah 16, verse 12, you too have done evil, even more than your forefathers. For behold, you're each one walking according to the stubbornness of his evil heart without listening to me. So how do we listen to him? That's what we're doing right now, okay? We have his word. It's been given to us. Genesis 8, verse 21 says, and Yahweh smelled the soothing aroma, and Yahweh said to himself, I will never again curse the ground on account of man. For the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth. And I will never again destroy every living thing as I have done. Psalm 53, the first three verses. The fool has said in his heart, there is no Elohim. They are corrupt and have committed abominable injustice. There is no one who does good. Elohim has looked down from heaven upon the sons of men to see if there is anyone who understands, who seeks after Elohim. Every one of them is turned aside. Together they've become corrupt. There is no one who does good, not even one. So, Proverbs 3, starting at verse 5. Trust in Yahweh with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear Yahweh and turn away from evil. It'll be healing to your body and refreshment to your bones. Well, how do you acknowledge him in all your ways? How do you do that? Yeah, acknowledge it. Let his word be your guide. Let his Torah be your guide. Okay, that's how you acknowledge him in all your ways. Proverbs 28, verse 26. He who trusts in his own heart is a fool, but he who walks wisely will be delivered. Ecclesiastes 9, verse 3. There is an evil in all that is done under the sun, that there is one fate for all men. Furthermore, the hearts of the sons of men are full of evil, and insanity is in their hearts throughout their lives. Afterwards they go to the dead. Matthew 5, verses 18 and 19. But the things that proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and those defile the man. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, slanders. You know, this following the heart thing, we just can't do it. We all do to a certain extent, a little bit. But we have to do it within the confines of the instructions that we were given. Verse 10 of Jeremiah 17. I, Yahweh, search the heart. I test the mind, even to give each man according to his ways, according to the results of his deeds. You know, we often hear preachers say that Elohim searches the hearts. Yes, he does, but they never finish the passage. Okay, that's what's important. When he does this, we find out he gives to each man according to his ways, according to the results of his deeds. Now, Christianity has this screwed up mentality that really your sin is your thoughts. Okay, it's not so much what you do, because Jesus died for that. Okay, but your thoughts are where sin comes from. You got to remember that mentality. You remember that? I remember my mom was telling me this just a while back, having a discussion. I said, Mom, do you know what sin is? She said, yes, I do. I said, what's that? It's my thoughts. I've got to tame my thoughts. Well, there's times you can no more contain your thoughts than you can your dreams. You know, it's our actions that we're judged by. It's our actions that we're judged by. Jeremiah 32, verses 18 and 19. Who shows loving kindness to thousands, but repays the iniquity of fathers into the bosom of their children after them. O great and mighty Elohim, the Yahweh of hosts is his name. Great in counsel and mighty in deed, whose eyes are open to all the ways of the sons of men, giving to everyone according to his ways and according to the fruit of his deeds. Psalm 62, verse 12, and loving kindness is yours, O Adonai, for you do recompense a man according to his work. Where does it come from? Where does this mindset come from in Christianity? It's your thoughts that are sin. Think of a passage.
What I'm going is if you think it in your mind, they don't realize that that's not what he's talking about in a commandment.
Yes, talking about a commandment. That's exactly right. Okay, what about, there's two things that Christians usually point to. If you hate your brother, you're a murderer. If I hate my brother, I'm a murderer. So if I hate somebody, I'm a murderer. Where does that come from? You know, that comes from the Torah. It comes from, it's in, I believe it's in Deuteronomy. It's either Deuteronomy or Leviticus. If two men go off into the woods, cut some wood, and the axe head falls off, slips off the axe, and kills the other man, that man is an accidental manslaughterer, okay? He's not a murderer. It's an accidental manslaughter. However, if the two men disappear and the same thing happens and it's known that that man hated the other, he's automatically guilty. That makes sense. That makes sense. Not hating your brother. Don't, and who's a brother? That's people who want to honor the ways of the Father. Okay, that's a brother, that's a sister, that's a neighbor. Yeah, Tom?
So you're saying if the axe handle slips off by accident and you hate the guy, it's murder? Well, I mean,
If there's no witnesses or anything, he's declared, he is,
but he's not.
well,
On purpose.
okay, now who goes out with someone they hate?
Well, I know everybody else
Into
would
the-
think so, but I would think in God's eyes it would, you know, he would.
That's the rules.
There would no malice there.
Don't hate your brother. How do you know?
Well, you're right.
There would be malice
If there
there.
was malice, Elohim would know.
Well, it's not. He's not going to tell everybody who's innocent and who's guilty. These are the rules to determine guilt. So don't hate your brother. You don't hate your brother, you don't have to worry about this. Okay? Can you control if you hate somebody? Yes. That doesn't mean dislike. It means hate. Hate. I mean, how many people do you really hate? And then the other one is if you look at a woman with lust, you've committed adultery. That's the other one.
And that's incorrect also, right?
No, I'll tell you what that is. First of all, he said adultery. Therefore, the woman's married. Right? That's by definition of adultery. What's the 10th commandment? Thou shalt not covet anything that is thy neighbor's. His wife, you've broken the 10th commandment. You already coveted. And coveting leads to these other things. Don't covet. Covet leads to adultery. Covet leads to stealing. Covet leads to murder. See, that's the only thought that is legislated in Scripture, is you can't covet. Do not covet. It's the only thought that's legislated. And the way we are, folks.
So what is covet then? 'Cause I saw a car today that I like.
Oh, that's good. And you know what? The word covet in the Hebrew, what it means is to desire to take from someone else.
Oh,
Okay?
okay. I saw it.
Oh, yeah. You see, desire can lead us to a lot of good things. Okay? I want a house like so-and-so has. Well, I need to get to work. Okay? Work harder. Be more of a success in life. You know, someone wants a wife as pretty as so-and-so. Okay? Well, you get to be a success in life. Clean yourself up every once in a while. You know, things might happen. It can lead to good things. It really can, but not to take anything from anybody else, to have that desire. That's evil. That's just evil. You know, and to take someone else's wife, oh my gosh, like there's not a lot of girls out there. That's absurd. Absolutely absurd. Yeah.
I seem like we talked once before. If you think of something, but you had no intention of doing it, I mean, it's kind of like, you don't.
Don't covet. That's the only thing.
Well,
Don't desire to take something from somebody else.
right.
Just avoid that. I mean, that's easy to desire, to not do. It really is. It is. Okay, now, Yeshua, he's talking about, he gives to each man according to his ways, according to the results of his deeds. Now, Yeshua displays the traits of his deity and states this passage as referring to him in judging each man himself, which is what he'll be doing. In Matthew 16, verse 27, for the Son of Man is going to come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and will then recompense every man according to his deeds. And a lot of Christians refuse to believe that they're going to be judged according to their deeds. Well, if you're going to judge someone according to the deeds, what's the standard? What is the standard? Okay? Okay, when judge, how do I determine if a deed is good or bad? There's nothing wrong with mowing my lawn on a Saturday and having a ham sandwich, is there? No, I feel good about those things. So if I feel good about it, that's fine then. I won't be judged according to that, right? Wrong. You broke the rules. The rules are determined in the Torah. In Revelation 20, verses 12 and 13, I saw the dead, the great and the small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. I love the way this is worded. Books were opened. What books are opened? There's 5 of them. Okay, we break them down to 5. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The Torah is opened. It's the rules that are in those 5 books. And another book was opened. This is that title deed to the land of Israel. That's the book of life. Okay, so the books are opened, and then this book is opened. The dead were judged from the things which were written in the books, the Torah, according to their deeds. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, meaning that those died from the flood gave up the dead that were in it. And death and Hades gave up the dead which were in them. That's those that died since the flood. And they were judged, every one of them according to their deeds. Revelation 22, verse 12, behold, I'm coming quickly, and my reward is with me, to render every man according to what he has done. Okay. Verse 11 of Jeremiah 17. As a partridge that hatches eggs which it is not laid, so is he who makes a fortune, but unjustly. In the midst of his days it will forsake him, and in the end he'll be a fool. Ever heard of Enron? What was that guy's name? He was famous there for a while. Not in a good way. The Ponzi scam. You know the picture here, it's a partridge which gathers to herself a brood of young birds that she did not hatch. When they realize that they're not of her, they forsake her and she'll appear to look foolish. So also will the wealthy appear who acquire their riches unjustly. It will leave them, and in the end, they'll look like a fool. Hey, working hard, making a lot of money, that's a good thing. Not a thing in the world wrong with that. Not a thing in the world wrong with that. But you got to do it the right way. That's what Torah is about. You've got to do it the right way. Well, you know, a little fraud here and there. Jesus will forgive that, won't he? What if I were to tell you no? He won't. Does he owe you? What does he owe you? He don't owe you a thing. He's already given you everything you have. Yeah, it's all in the commandments. That's correct. People who think that, well, you know, I did that, but God will forgive me. You think he owes you? He doesn't owe you forgiveness, even if you say you're sorry. He doesn't owe you that. Have you forgiven everybody that you've wronged? What's wronged you, I mean? And keep in mind, in the Lord's Prayer, it specifically says, and if you've ever prayed that, and I'm sure you have, I have too, it's a great prayer. You pray in that prayer, do not forgive me any more than I forgive everybody else. That's what you pray for. Verses 12 and 13. A glorious throne on high from the beginning is the place of our sanctuary. O Yahweh, the hope of Israel, all who forsake you will be put to shame. Those who turn away on earth will be written down, because they've forsaken the fountain of living water, even Yahweh. Those who forsake Yahweh and his Torah will be written down. Elohim says that he is that fountain of living water. That's early on in Jeremiah. Chapter 2, verse 13, for my people have committed 2 evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, to hew for themselves cisterns, broken down cisterns that can hold no water. Well, instead of him and his ways, they're trying to forge their own ways. Okay? And that's forsaking him. That's what he calls it. Well, now Jeremiah is going to pray for deliverance. Verse 14, heal me, O Yahweh, and I'll be helped. Save me, and I'll be saved, for you are my praise. Look, they keep saying to me, where is the word of Yahweh? Let it come now. But as for me, I've not hurried away from being a shepherd after you, nor have I longed for the woeful day. You yourself know the utterance of my lips was in your presence. Do not be a terror to me. You are my refuge in the day of disaster. Jeremiah knows his need for healing and for the salvation he can only get from the Father. Yahweh is his only refuge. Verse 18, let those who persecute me be put to shame. But as for me, let me not be put to shame. Let them be dismayed, but let me not be dismayed. Bring on them a day of disaster, and crush them with twofold destruction. Jeremiah wants those who are against him and his message from Yahweh to be put to shame. But he prays for his own deliverance. Verse 19, thus Yahweh said to me, go and stand in the public gate, through which the kings of Judah come in and go out, as well as in all the gates of Jerusalem, and say to them, listen to the word of Yahweh, kings of Judah, and all inhabitants of Jerusalem who come in through these gates. Thus says Yahweh, take heed for yourselves, and do not carry any load on the Sabbath day or bring anything in through the gates of Jerusalem. Jeremiah is to stand in the public gate there at Jerusalem and warn the people they must obey the Sabbath day. They're not to carry any heavy loads on the Sabbath. Verse 22, you shall not bring a load out of your houses on the Sabbath day, nor do any work, but keep that Sabbath day holy as I commanded your forefathers. Yet they did not listen or incline their ears, but stiffened their necks in order not to listen to take correction. You know, the majority of Christianity thinks it's not wrong or evil or anything like that to not honor the Sabbath day. Well, Elohim says for Judah, that's destruction. Okay? There for a whole generation of people in an entire country, it meant destruction. But now it doesn't bother him. Isn't that good? Boy, I'm glad. Whew. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Makes no sense at all. He actually then can't be the Elohim that doesn't change, can he? If he changed his mind on the Sabbath, what else could he change his mind on? Christmas trees. He changed his mind on Christmas trees, didn't he? If he changed his mind at all in anything, which he never has, he's the one that's faithful, then he could change his mind on salvation. He could change his mind on anything he wants to. But then again, he wouldn't be the character, he wouldn't have the character that he does, that we're supposed to exemplify. Verse 24, but it will come about if you listen attentively to me, declares Yahweh, to bring no load in through the gates of this city on the Sabbath day, but to keep the Sabbath day holy by doing no work on it. Then there will come in through the gates of the city kings and princes sitting on the throne of David, riding in chariots and on horses. They and their princes, the men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and this city will be established forever. Well, if Judah turns to Yahweh by honoring the Sabbath, then that throne of David will inhabit Jerusalem forever. We read in Psalm 89, starting at verse 29, so I will establish his descendants forever and his throne as the days of heaven. If his sons forsake my Torah and do not walk in my judgments, if they violate my statutes and do not keep my commandments, then I will visit their transgression with the rod and their iniquity with stripes. But I will not break off my loving kindness from him, nor deal falsely in faithfulness. My covenant I will not violate, nor will I alter the utterance of my lips. Once I have sworn by my holiness, I will not lie to David. His descendants shall endure forever, and his throne as the sun before me. It shall be established forever like the moon, and the witness in the sky is faithful. Selah. So it's speaking of the time, too, here in Jeremiah when Messiah returns. That's when the kingdom will be forever. Verse 26 in Jeremiah 17. They will come in from the cities of Judah and from the environs of Jerusalem, from the land of Benjamin, from the lowland, from the hill country, and from the Negev, bringing burnt offerings, sacrifices, grain offerings, and incense, and bringing sacrifices of thanksgiving to the house of Yahweh. When Messiah returns, now these offerings of thanksgiving, they'll be plentiful and abundant. Jeremiah 33, verse 11 says, the voice of joy and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, the voice of those who say, give thanks to the Yahweh of hosts. For Yahweh is good, for his loving kindness is everlasting. And of those who bring a thank offering into the house of Yahweh. For I will restore the fortunes of the land as they were at first, says Yahweh. Okay, so offerings will be done again when he returns. When that place that we are to offer them will be available, which is not available right now. Verse 27. But if you do not listen to me to keep the Sabbath day holy by not carrying a load and coming in through the gates of Jerusalem on the Sabbath day, then I shall kindle a fire in its gates, and it will devour the palaces of Jerusalem and not be quenched. Now, unfortunately, Elohim turned his face against Judah for their disobedience to his Torah. But today they're back in his land. And we're told to pray for Jerusalem, and that still applies today. Pray for the peace in Jerusalem. Pray for righteousness to return to Jerusalem, for that's the day of the return of Messiah. Any questions, any thoughts on Jeremiah 17?